You will own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, at least that's what they tell us. By now, you've probably heard the plans the world's elites have for us over the next decade. But what does it mean? In this video, I want to break down exactly what it means, the hidden agenda, how they're going to try to pull this off, and most importantly, what we can do about this right now to protect ourselves and our families if this doesn't sound like a world that you want to live in. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I focus on the money because it's at the root of our problems. And the more we have, the more options in life we get, especially when it comes to living free. And it's exactly what I'm talking about today. Having options for a better quality of life is important. And if you like these topics and want to help me get more people to learn and to wake up to this, then just take one quick second out of your day, click on that like button right now. If you're not already subscribed, hit that button and the bell notification so you're notified every time I put a new video out. Now, real quick, if you don't make it to the end of the video, just a quick note. I am doing a special New Year's event. It's the first week of January to make sure that you start your investments off the right way. Make sure you're prepared for whatever 2021 brings, so you can make 2021 the best year for the rest of your life. You can protect against this great reset. Now, you can find the link in the description of this video. All right, free presentation. I hope to see you there. All right, now today, we're digging into the World Economic Forum's Great Reset and their slogan that they've been talking about, which is, quote, "You will own nothing and be happy." Now, at this point, like I said, you've probably heard this, right? You've probably heard many people telling you what this is all about. So I want to bring you a different perspective. I want to dig into the meaning, what history shows us about this plan, how they're going to try to accomplish this over the next decade, and then how we can protect ourselves. So there's lots of stuff to go into, right? But before I go too deep, for some of you that may not be familiar with what I'm talking about, let me just give you a little bit of context first. Now, first, who's saying this? Where did this even come from? All right, maybe you've heard it's getting around, but you don't know. All right, so the World Economic Forum was started about 50 years ago, and basically it's a place where the global elite all come together once a year. They've been meeting in Davos, Switzerland, and they come together to figure out how they're going to rule the world, I guess. Right? They come together to discuss business things and stuff like that. But over the last 50 years, it's grown to a point where all the world leaders go there. Now, it's really where they're talking about an agenda for entire global control. Now, instead of like having free markets, free countries, free people, free markets that move, instead of having individual choice, it's where the whole world can be centrally planned, centrally controlled. Their top values are state intervention and collectivism, instead of individual liberty and private property. As a matter of fact, they want individual liberty and private property to disappear. At least that's per the WEF, which is, again, the World Economic Forum. Now, this is not some conspiracy. I encourage every single one of you to go to their website, World Economic Forum's website, and read all of this for yourself. So what is it that they're saying? All right, well, they really kick things off with an article and a video back in 2016. Since then, there's been several more articles, several more posts since. And they basically have painted a picture of the world that they want for us, right? And specifically, there's 8 predictions for the world by 2030, which is in 10 years from now. 8 predictions that they expect to have done in the next 10 years. So I'm going to give you a high level of what those are real fast. So 1, people will own nothing. That's right. You'll own nothing. You'll be happy. And what that means is that goods are either free or they must be borrowed from the state. 2, they say the United States will no longer be the leading superpower, but instead a handful of countries will dominate. Okay. 3, organs won't be transplanted anymore. They'll be printed. 4, meat consumption will be basically gone. 5, a massive displacement of people will take place. Billions and billions of refugees. They want to limit the emission of carbon dioxide. They want to put a global price on carbon. 7, they want people to prepare to go to Mars, to start a journey to find alien life. And then finally, 8, they say that Western values need to be abolished. All right. So that's all according to the World Economic Forum's scenario. This is what they've been putting out in their videos, putting out in their articles they've been putting out. And they basically want to make sure the world is a way different place than it is right now. Now, the vision for the world of 2030 is more than just a forecast. All right, it's actually a plan. It's a plan that's actually even currently underway, and it's accelerating faster and faster since the pandemic and the lockdowns have happened. Now, according to the projections of the WEF's Global Future Council, they say that private property and privacy will be abolished during the next decade. Okay. I don't know how you feel about that, but abolished. That means got rid of. Now, their plans and goals for 2030 would even go way further than what the communist dreams. The communists wanted to abolish private property of production of goods, but at least they would give you room for private possessions, but not the WEF. Their projection says that we won't even own consumer goods. So if the WEF projection should come true, people would have to rent and borrow everything they need from who? If you don't own anything, who owns it? So whoever owns them, whether that's the state, the WEF, the bankers, but they would basically be the creator and the owner of all the goods. The supply of the goods would be rationed out in line with whatever your social credit point system is, like they have in China. Now, shopping in the traditional sense would completely disappear along with private purchases of goods. Now, every personal move would be completely tracked electronically, and all production would be subject to the requirements of clean energy and a sustainable environment. Now, this is not a conspiracy. Again, this is all on their website. This is their plan. In order to attain what they call sustainable agriculture, the food supply will be mainly vegetarian. And in this new totalitarian service economy, the government will provide basic accommodations, provide your food, provide even your transportation, while everything else has to be borrowed from the state. Even the natural resources are going to be brought down to its bare minimum. Now, in cooperation with the few key countries, a global agency would set the price on CO2 emissions at a super high level to disincentivize its use. So if they can bring the price of CO2 emissions up, the price of gas and oil way up, less people will drive, less people will fly. You don't need to travel anywhere anyway, right? But who's doing this? All right, let's dig into that. Who is doing this? Who's really running things here? So I know in the United States, we are caught up in this whole process. I'm not going to name what it was, but recently we had this whole thing going on that everybody was voting on, and lots of things are happening where they think, there's conspiracy there, but this is way bigger than one country. This is way bigger than the president. This is bigger than any of that. This is all being done by what are called NGOs. That stands for non-government organizations. All right, these are not elected leaders. I'm talking about the UN, the IMF, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization. All right, these people have been working behind the scenes for a long time. This is nothing new. It's rich and powerful people, the bankers, trying to exert their power and control specifically over money and then policy. Now, the World Economic Forum is founded by somebody named Klaus Schwab. And in 2020, this year, he announced something called the Great Reset. All right. Now, the Great Reset is to reset capitalism. I'm not going to go through that. Like I said, there's been a lot of videos done on that. But again, this is nothing new. As a matter of fact, I mentioned the UN as well. And the UN has been attacking private property rights for a long time. As a matter of fact, back in 1976, they created something called the UN Habitat Summit. And basically what they did is that was to say that owning private property was wrong. They've been attacking private property that long. So what does all this mean? Well, for me, I take them at their word. Again, this is not conspiracy or conjecture. This is on their website. This is their plan, and I take it at their word. And like I said, this has been going on a long time. In a book titled Tragedy and Hope, it was written in 1966. It was written by Carroll Quigley, and he was a Georgetown University historian. He was also a mentor to former President Bill Clinton. All right, so he knows a couple things. And in this book, he described a network of individuals behind the scenes and their effort to build a one world system with themselves in charge. Now, quoting from the book, he says, quote, "The powers of financial capitalism had another far-reaching aim, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole." Wow, that was pretty foretelling. He went on to say, quote, "This system was to be controlled in feudalist fashion by the central banks of the world, acting in concert by secret agreements arrived at in frequent and private meetings and conferences." Okay, kind of sounds like the World Economic Forum, doesn't it? Isn't that what we're talking about? Now, notice he said the word feudalism, feudalist system, all right? A lot of people maybe don't know what that is. So the feudalist system, feudalism, which is the way the world was before we got into free market capitalism, all right? Before the world opened up, under a feudalist system, only the ruling elites, they were the kings, the lords, the barons, and so forth, only they were allowed to own any land or property. All the rest were serfs. The serf class, like I said, everybody else, They basically rented land. They rented homes, equipment, capital, and so on from the rulers. All right. Now, whatever the lords demanded from them, they had to do. Whether it was military service, they had to give up their crops, their children, anything had to be handed over on demand. Otherwise, the serf would be forced off the land that he was renting. Sound kind of familiar? All right. So now that we have the stage set, let's dig a little bit deeper. All right. And when we can easily see that their hidden agenda is basically communism. All right. Now, they don't call it this. They don't call it communism, but think about this. If we look at Marx, Karl Marx and Marxism, which led to communism, it was all about abolishing private property. And they believed that we could take socialism that would eventually lead to communism, which communism was really this utopian dream. So communism was like we lived in a commune. So in a commune, everybody's happy and everybody's sharing everything. So it was this utopian vision that maybe never was really realized. And the reason why it's a false utopia is a couple things. First of all, there's no such thing as utopia because my idea of utopia is different than your idea. So your utopia is not utopia for me, and my utopia is not utopia for you. So right off the bat, it's completely false. The next thing is that one of my favorite business sayings, and I've been in business a long time, is that the best way to make sure nothing gets done is to put two people in charge of it. We have to have somebody with their eye on the ball, right? Somebody has to be in charge for anything to get done. We also know that the communism can't work because of something known as the tragedy of the commons. Now, the tragedy of the commons is a problem in economics that occurs when individuals neglect the well-being of society in the pursuit of personal gain. So what happens is this leads to an overconsumption and ultimately a depletion of the common resources to everybody's detriments. All right. So basically, if we had a lake with fish and it was just open and it was common, anybody could use it. Well, I might go there to try to get as many fish as I possibly can so I can feed my family, put some in the freezer, and maybe sell some. And you might do the same, and you might do the same. And very quickly, it becomes overfished and there's no more fish. The same could be said for land. I could go graze my cattle there. And so because I'm looking out for my own self-interest, nobody's there to regulate it, nobody owns it, then it gets abused. Now, some people say, well, that's easily fixed. The government can do this, right? The government can just regulate that. But that doesn't work either, because then the government basically turns into cronyism. Then whoever's the most connected to the government gets control of the land. You see, so that's cronyism. And then on top of that, they don't have an economic incentive to do that. So if I owned a piece of land and I was growing trees for wood, I would make sure that I would not chop down too many, and I'd plant enough to make sure that those trees were always growing and I had a long-term steady income stream. But if I just got the rights from the government, I might just try to make as much money as I possibly can with no regard for what happens, because I don't have that ownership. I don't have that economic incentive. All right. So now we've talked about what they want to do, right? We've talked about why. Right? Now let's talk about their stated goal, right? By 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. So the question is, how do they get us to that point? How can over 10 years they get us from having private property to owning nothing, right? I mean, surely people aren't going to really give everything up peacefully, right? It's not going to happen. So it has to be taken away, or it can be done through an event. So as a government response, for example, countries are shutting down everywhere. Businesses are forced to shut down. Businesses are going out of business. Tens of millions of people are put out of work. The middle class gets destroyed, and the middle class gets pushed into serfdom. Now they're getting their $600 stimulus check. Their businesses were destroyed, while at the same time, the crony mega businesses like Amazon get bigger and bigger and bigger, the ruling class. All right. Now, this isn't all doom and gloom. All right. This is not all doom and gloom. As bad as it may seem, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I know it's getting worse in some areas, like in Canada, for example. They said like the next round of stimulus going out to businesses, they have to give up equity. So we're starting to see how this happens. You might think you're so rich and you're insulated. I own a bunch of apartments and I make $200,000 a month. It doesn't matter to me. But what about if you can't collect rent on those people? Right? So they can eventually put everybody out of business, and the last people that hang on might just have it taken from them. All right. But like I said, this is not all doom and gloom. The reason why it's not doom and gloom is because the future you want can still be yours, right? We're not victims. The future is ours to create. We still have options. we can still fight back about this. If this doesn't sound like a future that you want, then it shouldn't be a future that you get. So how? How can we fight back against this? So the first thing is to wake up, all right? Wake up, educate yourself, all right? Once you've woken up and educate yourself, then educate your friends, educate your family, all right? Then we have to speak up, all right? Now, my grandfather went to World War II. He risked his life. There was a good chance he wasn't coming home. My father went to Vietnam. There was a good chance he wasn't coming home. Today, people are afraid to even speak up, to use words because somebody might look at them weird. So we have to educate ourselves, educate others. We have to speak up. Now, this is effective, all right? We've already seen the World Economic Forum launch that video and talked about this whole plan. And they got a ton of backlash, a ton of scrutiny and things like that. And so they've started to pull back from that. As a matter of fact, they took the video down in English. It's still up in Spanish, but one of the articles that they wrote, they went back and rewrote it. So they're already starting to see this pushback, and they're already starting to adjust. Okay, so that's how we're going to do this. We need to educate ourselves, educate others. We have to speak up. If 1 billion people don't want this to happen, then it shouldn't happen. We need free market competition. I believe that's what ultimately frees us from this. If a state can continue to control you, why would they ever give that up willingly? Of course they won't. But if another country says, hey, forget that over there, you can come over here and live for free. Instead of living in a cage, come over here, we have all this open land. As a matter of fact, we'll let you start a business and all these things. Well, people might go there. And if enough people go there, another country might say, hey, you can come over here too. And eventually it's that free market competition that can break this gap. And it's Bitcoin that really enables all this to happen. All right. So that's what's happening. That's where we're going. And that's how we can stop it. Let me know what you think. Do you take them at your word? Or is this all just some exaggerated thing that people like myself are blowing out of proportion and it's all going to blow over? Let me know in the comments below. I take them for their word. Also, remember that I'm doing a special New Year's event. It's the first week of January. I want to make sure you start the year off right with all this craziness, this great reset stuff. Make sure 2021 is the best year ever. So check the link in the description of this video for the free event that I'm doing for the first week of January. All right, leave me a comment. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up on the video if you like it. And if you don't, give me a thumbs down. But either way, let me know. That's what I got for you today. To your success.